I'm trying to fucking survive to.
Princess Alice, her very existence has made the community divided, with people saying stuff like, Alice is OP.
She needs a nerf.
Actually, she's pretty weak if the teachers actually have teamwork. Sue sucks. She's balanced, what do you mean? She costs Robux, that's why she needs to be OP. But let's ask the real questions, such as why the minimalist skin kind of sucks and at the very least could use a bit more stuff going for it, especially for phase 2. With all of that being said, let's elaborate on the state of Alice. As per usual, please for the love of God do not send any hate to any developers or staff members. It will not magically make Alice balance and you're just contributing to unnecessary negativity. Instead, use that energy to give your own thoughts and ideas on how to change and improve Alice in the comment section down below. Now let's start. But before that, let me provide some background information and quickly talk about the fact as to why Alice is a Gamepass. Rewinding back to FPES legacy really quickly. Let me just say that this is based on what I remember, of course. In the shortest possible recap that I can put up here, Alice was originally a Gamepass in the legacy version of the game, costing 800 Robux to purchase. For the time, it seemed like nobody really had too big of a problem with it. Well, if you had the Robux to buy the Gamepass, of course. Free-to-play players couldn't really do anything other than die to Alice every time it was her night. Her M1s dealt like 60 damage. But obviously nowadays, you see people say that Alice is pay to win. I mean, back then it wasn't too common. Okay, who am I kidding? People said that even back during Legacy. People called Alice pay to win back then. They still call her pay to win today. But now let's talk about the pre-remastered release era, aka before the current version of the game had released. While it wasn't exactly the fault of the current developers as to why Alice is a Game Pass, the fault does kind of fall on them when we're talking about the price of the Game Pass increasing. You know how it costed 800 Robux? Well, sometime before the remastered game release, the price was increased to 1000 Robux. And they did make an announcement about this. If you bought it in the Legacy game, you essentially had a 200 Robux discount and also don't have to repurchase the Game Pass. Either way, you now know, or at least got reminded as to why Alice is a Game Pass. Alice more or less had to stay as a Game Pass since the people who did buy Alice back in the Legacy version of the game would likely write and scream at the developers that they would scream that they were scammers. But now there was another issue. People who bought it for 1000 Robux will sure as hell not be happy in the slightest since they bought the Game Pass for a higher price. That being said, let's go back to modern day. Yet another debated aspect about the Alice Game Pass is the fact that you need 150 survivals and 500 kills to actually be able to have a chance to use her. Now, the 500 kills is no real issue, but the survivals on the other hand, that is a different kind of worms which connect back to the issues that student gameplay has to begin with. The main reasoning for the stat requirements is likely to avoid players from instantly being able to use Alice and dominate servers with it, which is reasonable and likely would have caused more issues if the stat requirements hadn't existed. As a result though, you now have to sentence yourself to grinding survivals. I already said this in an older video, but the best guaranteed way to grind survivals is to literally hide and not engage with the teachers in any way. You might say that, well, you are the one who is making your own gameplay boring in the first place. Go out there and do something more interesting. And well, that's true. What do you expect us to do when we can't really fight back in the first place? You get punished for trying to have fun and messing around in the game. Dying a single time in the round ensures that we sure as hell are not going to get the survival from the round, which we need for the Alice requirements. It makes the grind take longer than it should be. As of recently, July 2026, the developers have put out a giant announcement regarding Game Passes. And if not already obvious, the Alice Game Pass is part of said announcement. The main gist in terms of Alice here revolves around the discussion of reducing the price of the Alice Game Pass, The Alice Game Pass being repurposed into being able to passively obtain Alice chants through rounds, while free-to-play players, including Alice Game Pass owners, can manually buy Alice chants with a moderate amount of Delta shards. Such a change would make everyone be able to play as Alice, but the Alice Game Pass owners would still have a higher chance of playing as Alice by simply playing the game. Take note that it is described as a unsettled matter, which typically means that there is still a chance for it to be changed, also known as not being 100% finalized. Oh boy, I can feel the radiation coming from the comment section. This might be a really long section, but here goes nothing. Before we discuss Alice and her abilities, we need to discuss the community. So you see, some of the community wants Alice to be free in some way or cost Delta shards. This mostly comes from the people who don't own her, which is fair because 1 out of 4 characters are locked behind the paywall. And unsurprisingly, the people who actually bought Alice do not like that idea in the slightest. They would once again likely say that they were scammed since they bought a product that they didn't know would be free or not cost Robux in the future. There are also some people who want Alice to get nerfed, while the other part of the community doesn't really like that idea, and they typically say that because Alice costs Robux, it makes sense for her to be overpowered and not changed in any way. And this leads to another thing: Nerfs. In the Discord server, well, before they decided to essentially archive the game suggestion forums, there was an Alice-related Nerf suggestion that reached over 106 downvotes. Now obviously I cannot go back in time, I cannot check what the suggestion was actually about, but with that being said, some members of the community they absolutely despise Alice being changed in any shape or form, like I said previously, and it's practically the reverse for any buffs. Since the people who can recognize the fact that some aspects of her moveset is absolutely annoying to deal with, mostly ability combos due to the lack of end lag, and obviously do not want Alice to be more overtuned or possibly more overpowered than she already is. And well, yes, there is the first time where the developers decided to actually nerf Alice. And it's also the time where people, mostly in the Discord server but also partially on YouTube comments, heavily complained. Now, what could be the changes that caused such a big reaction? That's it. It's not really that big of a change in my opinion, but apparently to some Game Pass owners it was the end of the world, which only applies if you're Oliver and see Alice as your world. There has been a recent change, of course, which added a 2.25 second cooldown to the Rip and Tear sub ability after you grabbed someone, though it might not really be that noticeable. But with this information in mind, you can understand now that developers can't really nerf or change Alice without heavily provoking the community. And in the same fashion, they can't really buff her too much and make her unstoppable to the point where people will start screaming that she's pay to win more often than they do right now. You can't really appease everyone no matter the scenario here. So if you cannot appease everyone, the likely outcome is the developers will try to appease a specific side. Oh god, and we can only hope something good would come of that. Where were we again? Oh right. Speaking of which, let's have a chat about Alice's phases, because yes, she has 2 phases. We'll talk about the specific phases themselves and not the additional effects or abilities. I might be the only one that finds Phase 1 more fun to play than Phase 2, although the enjoyment I have for Phase 1 sort of just disappears when the teachers don't really fight back, like sometimes they just straight up give up. I feel like the entertainment in playing as Alice mostly comes down to how the server reacts or acts. They either fight back or half the server proceeds to fucking leave. It's kind of poetic really. Playing as Alice is fun, but for everyone else, it's actually the most painful experience they ever had. And when Alice doesn't really have anyone to fight or kill, the gameplay becomes drastically stale. One could even call it boring. I mean, there's a reason why some teachers don't fight back. They are either new to playing as a teacher or generally aware that they stand no chance against Alice. There is of course a sense of adrenaline in a way. If you wish to get Phase 2, you have to kill teachers and students to fill up your Phase 2 bar, while also dealing with the fact that the round's timer is slowly ticking down. Though, admittedly, you aren't forced to kill the teachers when you're playing as Alice, and we'll talk about that in a different section because that leads to another problem. The general consensus that I've seen is how people find Alice unfair to play against. Dealing with the Spike Bloom combo, and well, the issue can't be any more obvious than playing as... Do I even need to say anything else? If you thought student gameplay was boring, now it's practically hell. Alice's grab ability is quite literally a death sentence. Barely anyone has a baseball bat to save you, and if they do have a baseball bat, they're probably being targeted. Now yes, the grab ability was recently given a 2.25 second cooldown for whenever you first grab a player, giving people a short time frame where you can be safe if they have the baseball bat. This change, however, will hopefully encourage some Alice users to use a throw ability instead, which may or may not be a better ability in the first place, but the instant kill ability is still likely a more enticing option for some players. Let's talk about her moveset in Phase 1 a bit here. Alice's M1s are admittedly pretty predictable, let's not lie, considering most Alice players literally just spam it. Okay, I'm kind of lying here, I despise how fast her M1s are and how incredibly short she gets stunned for when you block said M1. The issue would obviously be the grab ability, as it bypasses the block ability entirely, being a massive middle finger to your attempts to survive by being able to instantly kill you. And then we have Spike Bloom, which is likely intended to be a ability where you can essentially defend yourself against the teachers when they're all like right next to you. Or like maybe it's also a crowd control ability, but from what I've seen, people use it as a combo ability with their M1s. For her spikes, well, I don't really see Alice players use spikes that often. I mean, like, the annoying part about it is the fact that it ragdolls you, but other than that, the damage isn't really that high or significant, I'd say. The teleport ability is pretty much just a surprise attack ability in which it bypasses doors, so don't try closing a door, I guess, unless you know that that teleport cooldown for Alice is on what the fuck did I just say? And then we have the retreat ability, which has a cooldown of over 2 minutes and like 2.5 minutes or something, I don't know. But either way, it heals Alice but also teleports her back to her room. I don't really know what to think of this ability other than you're probably going to be very annoyed when the Alice is on like 100 HP, you're playing as Miss Circle using failure mode, and then she teleports back into a room. I'm likely missing a lot of other things here, but you know, let's not forget to mention the fact that blackouts can happen during Phase 1 Alice nights. Maybe I am a bit biased, but why do blackouts happen during Alice nights? Blackouts essentially give Alice extra time in order to fill up the Phase 2 bar, and actually this leads to our next problem, specifically a result of what happens if Alice decides not to kill the teachers. I'm gonna call this the coexisting problem, but I suppose you can call it the teaming problem, depending on the context. Now, from my knowledge, FPES doesn't exactly have a no teaming rule from what I'm aware of, so take that with a grain of salt first. As a result though, there is a high likelihood that you have experienced a failure mode Miss Circle in a Phase 2 Alice night, which is not fun in the slightest. Not only do you have one killer that can instantly kill you, now you have two. God forbid Alice doesn't kill all of the teachers earlier in the round, because now you have 4 threats during the night. Imagine trying to fix a blackout with 4 killers waiting to end your existence. That is of course a hypothetical scenario, but a very likely hypothetical scenario. All I'm going to say though, that this ends up making student gameplay more annoying to play than it usually does. And while I do admit that Alice Nights in general makes the game more chaotic, it essentially functions as a special round of some kind, I don't really enjoy being able to do practically nothing as a student. It feels like the purpose of a student is to literally just increase the amount of kills that another player has. Also, pro tip, please do not wear a Claire avatar during an Alice night. Now, this might be a hot, warm, or cold take. It's not hard to kill Alice. The actual problem, or what is actually hard to deal with, is actually having good teacher teammates or good server ping so that you can actually properly attack Alice head on. Speaking of server ping, I'm getting attacked from 5 abbeys away. In terms of teachers, your best option is Miss Circle because of failure mode, dealing 100 damage towards Alice. Meanwhile, Miss Bloom is a maybe, as her headshots also deal 100 damage and the chemistry potion can also slow down Alice. mostly just comes down to the fact that you're going to run out of ammo. For Miss Tavel, I guess she's okay. I find her more of a teacher that supports the attack against Alice, since the only thing Pounce does is stun Alice for a few seconds. I mean, like, her M1 is also rather quick, I suppose, but I don't really know what instincts it's gonna do in this situation. I mean, I guess you can run away if you have low health or something, but that really just depends on the server ping once again. You never know if you're gonna get hit by a fucking claw from 8 meters away. Most Alice players will typically go after teachers, and most especially Miss Circle, and that's not really a good thing, considering Alice's spawn is relatively close to where the teacher spawn. It's quite literally in the same hallway. Thankfully, this specific issue is going to be fixed in the Recode map. Though if you're talking about the current map, Alice can also quite literally send a spy trail early on before her door even gets to open. But then again, it barely even hits anyone in the first place, probably. However, there's been a rather old change where you get a teacher chance if you were killed by Alice as a teacher. Although from what I've heard, this may or may not be buggy. This change in general though allows you to have a higher likelihood of becoming teacher after you die to Alice in the Alice Night. And well, it's obviously a band-aid fix considering it's still annoying to have your teacher round be interrupted by Princess M1. So first off, this is supposed to be Alice's reward for reaching phase 2, and I'd say it's kind of underwhelming. So, look, you're unkillable now and supposed to be unstoppable, ignoring the fact that you can get looped in the second floor of the main hall, that is. Either way, you are a force to be reckoned with. It is the fault of those who have failed to kill you for why this outcome had to happen. This is a show of strength and you're absolutely overpowered. Well, except for the fact that the Spike's ability is your only form of multi-hit ability where you can hit multiple players at once, and the rest of your abilities are just single targets. Maybe it's my personal preference, but I don't really find it that enjoyable to even play as phase 2 Alice. Mostly just talking about the single target abilities where it takes so incredibly long just to kill someone. I don't know, I just feel like the kill animations take too long, and I feel like her abilities could at least be more interesting to use or at least be more engaging to actually utilize. For example, the tentacle ability, it could instead work more like Badware's Rift ability from Die of Death, where you can actually teleport to the specific location where you have that thing. Essentially, I'm proposing that we turn it into a map teleport type of ability, but let's also add the eye warning thing that the ESP or aura reading ability has. I mostly just propose that because there's nothing much you can really do when the players are at the other side of the map. The cooldowns during phase 2 is pretty short actually, allowing you to use multiple abilities in a short time frame. But then again, they are all single target abilities. And you are admittedly a bit slow. This is pretty much what allows people to loop you at the main hall's second floor, and this by extension is pretty much what stops you from quickly traversing the map and killing everyone. But on the other side of the spectrum, we have students and the teachers who survived the earlier phase, I suppose. If I hadn't mentioned it already, phase 2 turns the timer to like 3 minutes and 10 seconds, which, what do you do during that time? You either die or you survive. There's no in between because there's absolutely nothing to do during phase 2 if you are a student or if you are a teacher. Oh boy, I wonder why this feels familiar. Because it's literally just failure mode Miss Circle, but 10 times more annoying. You are essentially just hiding from the threat that can instantly kill you, while you just wait and pray that she does not find you. Which is kind of hard considering the fact that she has an aura reading ability, but then again sometimes the Alice players don't really let's just say they're a bit tunnel visioned and decide to attack someone else instead. Honestly speaking, phase 2 Alice is probably the one thing where I can't really gather my opinions about properly. On one hand, it doesn't really feel that enjoyable to play as considering the amount of single target abilities that you have. Your only objective is to kill people over and over again, which is your reward for getting phase 2, I suppose. But it's also a pretty boring reward considering most people in the server probably already left. But on the other hand, it just feels boring and annoying to deal with when you're playing as a student or a teacher. considering the fact that you can't really do anything else other than just trying to survive, I guess. If you buff phase 2, chances are it'll be more annoying to play against than it already is. When you die, there's nothing else to really do other than adding to the Alice player's kill stat. My best explanation for it is to literally call it Schrödinger's balancing. It is both balanced and unbalanced at the same exact time. Buff one aspect, it becomes overtuned, but nerf one aspect, it suddenly becomes too underpowered. I don't know if I'm just too stupid to explain what I'm trying to say, or if it's just because the way that Alice is right now, oh my god, I fucking give up, man. Alright, for suggestions, do I have any suggestions on how to fix Alice? Well, other than adjusting the damage and cooldown of some abilities, maybe there is no real way to satisfy both the people who want Alice to stay the way that she currently is, and also the people who want to see her get nerfed. But hell, I'm not gonna go down without at least trying to suggest a few things, I guess, man. Oh boy, before we do start, I'm just gonna say that I am not a balancer, and I'm not sure if the things I will suggest will actually make things better or worse. Rework her entirely. Reworking her entirely. Anyways, as I was saying, we should just rework Alice entirely. I know the game is being recoded currently, and hopefully this is being used to tackle and fix the current issues of the game. Not only Alice, but also student gameplay and possibly some aspects of teacher gameplay. But generally speaking, there is no way to suggest a buff or a nerf to the current Alice moveset without people wanting your ass crucified. So the only way to trigger the least amount of people is to just straight up rework her abilities. Phase 2 especially needs a rework of some kind, because I don't really find it fun playing as her in the first place. I mean, I already said the entire one of her abilities only multi-hits people, blah blah blah. And I don't know if I'm unlucky or something, but most people are heavily spread out or are just camping at the main hall second floor once again. Side note, that entire place is gonna be removed in the recode map or whatever. I have other ideas as well, such as reworking the grab ability in some way to like turn it more into Ennard's grab ability and Bite by Night, or like, you know, essentially summoning one of her tentacles to grab a student and drag them closer to her. If the developers really wanted to, maybe they could add like a quick time event of some kind, but I really doubt they would do that. Although I do have one non-ability related thing. Just listen here, just hear me out for a second. Personally, I think you should be able to feel phase 2 Alice's presence even when you're not near her. For example, I think the spikes could at least make the player's camera shake a bit. Another thing could be to make phase 2 Alice's team essentially work as a chase team or a terror rages of some kind. You'll never know where she'll come from. Probably. A scopophobia, whatever the hell it's called, could probably also be a bit scary in the sense where imagine the screen gets darker depending on how close Alice is, though that might not be scary at all. If the camera shake ends up being a bit too much, it can just be added as a settings option in the game menu. But either way, oh god, this is the most stressful video I've ever had in my life. Alice is one of those things where you end up saying fun to play as, not play against, and that's definitely not the first time you heard me say that, because I've also said the same to Failure Mode Miss Circle. Might get some hate comments, but whatever, man. This time we're fighting fire with gasoline. Anyways, I hope the recode update will address Alice's abilities or something like that, because whenever you say Alice is unfun to play against, fight me.